The story of the Japanese Grand Prix is the story of 2024. This race felt so generic that I thought someone had just filled out a template for 2024 Formula One race. Then I got an idea. If I set up this video as a template where I only have to change minor details after each race, I could save myself a ton of work this season. Keep watching and you'll see what I mean. Welcome to Fiends, where the F1 never ends, even when the season is over before it starts. It was a great race for Red Bull, as Max Verstappen took pole in Suzuka, which he then converted into a victory of over 20 seconds, ahead of everyone who wasn't in a Red Bull. Max's teammate, Sergio Perez, finished 10 seconds behind Verstappen, after qualifying on the front row. Red Bull's team principal, Christian Horner, said he and the team were pleased with the results. Over at Red Bull's second team, Visa Crash App Arby's, Daniel Ricciardo was disappointed with his results after crashing out at turn 2. He finished behind his teammate Yuki Tsunoda for the third race in a row. Despite Yuki's consistent performance, he is still not being considered to replace Checo. Meanwhile at Ferrari, Carlos Sainz outperformed his teammate once again. It was very clear they had the second fastest car, but they were still nowhere near fast enough to beat Adrian Newey's RB20 rocket ship. Ferrari, surprisingly, got the strategy right and finished third and fourth. The Tifosi were encouraged by these results and insisted that next year will be Ferrari's year. McLaren had a decent race, finishing behind Red Bull and Ferrari. They spent most of the race scrapping with Mercedes, but ultimately came out on top. The drivers expressed that they were happy with the progress the team has made this year, but they're still going to need to keep pushing and improving the car if they're ever going to win a race. In contrast, the Mercedes drivers were split in terms of how they felt. Lewis Hamilton spent the race complaining on the radio and seemed defeated well before the race was over, while George Russell had a much better race despite his collision with Oscar Piastri. Aston Martin's drivers also had two very different races. Fernando Alonso finished at the front of the midfield, while Lance Stroll was so far behind that it felt like he was racing in a different category. And he agreed.
It's unbelievable how bad our speed is on the straight. Like, it's a different category.
Despite his performance, there is still no question that Lance Stroll will keep his seat because his dad owns the team. Looking further down the grid, Sauber still seems unable to figure out how to do a Formula One pit stop, with Bottas' race being ruined by a stop that took over 8 seconds. And Haas, while still trash, was at least looking good in comparison to Alpine, who were so slow that fans have been calling for them to give up and sell the team. And Williams was once again put in a tough place thanks to Alex Albon crashing his car, which was made even tougher as they were still recovering from Alex Albon's crash at the last race. I would like to say that team principal James Vowles didn't mince words when he addressed the issue in the debrief video that he published on YouTube after the race, but once again, he spoke so quietly that it was hard to understand what he was saying. It was also hard to understand what was the point of watching this race. While most people would describe the 2024 Japanese Grand Prix as a boring parade behind Verstappen, die-hard F1 fans are pointing out that if you ignore Max and Red Bull, there was a lot of exciting racing given how tight the pack is. But for a lot of people, if there's no competition for the victory, there's no point in watching. You can tell the pundits know this because in the lead up to the race, they kept hyping up Sergio Perez as a potential challenger to Max, as he was only 600ths off pole position, but I think we all knew, come race day, that wasn't gonna matter. Speaking of not mattering, here's a Canadian opinion on this Grand Prix. Well, you've heard the British guys enough, so why don't you listen to somebody else for a change? Lance Stroll sucks and I hate him. Unlike your mom, who I love, because she sucks. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. For the poll of the week, I asked, how do you feel about F1 drivers posting thirst traps on Instagram? 18% of respondents said they like it and that's why they follow them, 9% said they don't like it, and the vast majority of respondents said they don't care. The reason I ask is because I was thinking of getting back to parodying the drivers' thirst traps on the Fiends official Instagram account. Let me know in the comments if you think I should start doing that again. For all the people who stuck it out to the end of the video, here's your spicy joke of the week. The race in Suzuka was both very late at night for us Canadians and very boring. Starting at midnight and finishing after 2:30 a.m., I had to drink a ton of coffee just to stay awake to the end. But I'm glad I did, because the explosive diarrhea that followed was the most exciting thing I experienced during this race.